Alfred Bult Mullett was an American architect who served from 1866 to 1874 as Supervising Architect, head of the agency of the United States Treasury Department that designed federal government buildings. His work followed trends in Victorian style, evolving from the Greek Revival to Second Empire to Richardsonian Romanesque. Life and career. Mullett was born at Taunton in Somerset, England. When he was 8 years old, his family emigrated to Glendale, Ohio, where in 1843 his father bought an 80-acre farm. He matriculated at Farmers College in College Hill, Cincinnati, studied mathematics and mechanical drawing, but left as a sophomore in 1854. He trained in the Cincinnati office of architect Isaiah Rogers and became a partner, until he left on less than friendly terms in 1860 to establish his own practice. His first known individual design is the Church of the New Jerusalem, a board and batten Gothic Revival church built at Glendale in 1861. After serving with the Union Army, Mullett in 1863 relocated to Washington to again work under Rogers. Since 1862 to the de facto supervising architect at the Treasury Department, but he undermined his superior's position until an exasperated Rogers resigned in 1865, the year Mullett married Pacific Pearl Myrick. Although widely dismissed as an obscure draftsman from Cincinnati, he used political skill to get appointed supervising architect in 1866, and so designed fireproof federal buildings across the nation, particularly custom houses, post offices and courthouses, responsible for contracting local architects and/or construction companies to deal with subcontractors, source materials and other matters. He gained a reputation as a micromanaging authoritarian with an explosive temper, influenced by the 1864 to 1868 remodeling of the Louvre's Pavillon de Flore by Hector Lafeuille and Richard Morris Hunt. Mullett produced 6 massive fortress-like Second Empire federal buildings in St. Louis, Boston, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, New York and Washington, D.C., where the State, War, and Navy Building rose near the White House. These stone and cast-iron structures, with mansard roofs and multiple tiers of columns, were expensive. He was dogged by accusations of extravagance and subjected to 5 separate investigations into his ties to the corrupt Granite Ring. Mullett reluctantly resigned in 1874 while under attack from reforming Treasury Secretary Benjamin Bristow and others. He was investigated for negligence when 3 men were killed on May 1, 1877 by floor failure at the City Hall Post Office, New York City. In 1882, he set up a practice in New York with Hugo Kafka and William G. Steinmetz, later establishing Alfred B. Mullett and Amp Sons to practice with his 2 elder sons, but the government never paid him for major commissions, and he remained a popular political target. The New York Sun called him the most arrogant, pretentious, and preposterous little humbug in the United States. Quote, in 1890, in financial trouble and ill health, Mullett killed himself in Washington. Over his career he produced some 40 government buildings, and 2 of the 6 huge Second Empire piles remain standing in St. Louis and Washington. During the modernist period, critics accused him of using overblown ornament to hide weak form. The New York City Hall Post Office was dubbed Mullett's monstrosity. Following another shift in popular taste, however, he is recognized for his contribution to monumental Victorian architecture. Works: 1861, Church of the New Jerusalem, Glendale, Ohio, 1866 to 1870, Carson City Mint, Carson City, Nevada, 1867, Courthouse and Post Office, Madison, Wisconsin, 1867, Post Office, Portland, Maine, 1867 to 1870, Custom House and Post Office, Ogdensburg, New York. 1868 to 1871, office building and U.S. Lighthouse Depot Complex, Street, George, Staten Island, New York. 1869 to 1870, Old Custom House and Post Office, Wiscasset, Maine. 1869 to 1873, Post Office and Sub-Treasury Building, Boston, Massachusetts. 1869 to 1874, San Francisco Mint, San Francisco, California. 1869 to 1880, City Hall, Post Office and Courthouse, New York City. 1869 to 1875, Pioneer Courthouse, Portland, Oregon. 1870, Courthouse and Post Office, Columbia, South Carolina. 1871 to 1888, State, War and Navy Building aka Old Executive Office Building aka Eisenhower Executive Office Building, Washington, D.C. 1871 to 1881, U.S. Custom House, Louisiana. 1871, U.S. Assay Office, Boise, Idaho. 1872, Custom House and Post Office, Cairo, Illinois. 1872, U.S. Custom House, Portland, Maine. 1873 to 1879, Post Office and Customs House, Evansville, Indiana. 1873 to 1884, Old Post Office, Street, Louis, Missouri. 1874, Customs House, Knoxville, Tennessee. 1874 to 1885, Courthouse and Post Office, Cincinnati, Ohio. 1874 to 1884, Courthouse and Post Office, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 1874 to 1878, Federal Building, Raleigh, North Carolina. 1877, Custom House and Post Office, Port Huron, Michigan. 1873 to 1882, Courthouse and Post Office, Hartford, Connecticut. 1887, Major General John A. Logan Mausoleum, U.S. Soldiers and Airmen's Home, National Cemetery, Washington, D.C. 1887, Sun Building, Washington, D.C. For the publisher of the Baltimore Sun newspaper, it is one of the oldest multi-story steel frame buildings in Washington, D.C. 1889, Mullett Row Houses, Washington, D.C. 1890, Camp House Mansion, Knoxville, Tennessee. Gallery of Designs.